So hi everyone, this is Sofie from Hearty Moms, where we love equipping working moms with tools to nurture happy, thriving children. And every week we speak to different experts along our team. And currently we are focused on exams. So today our guest speaker will be sharing with us on how to motivate our children. And I am really, really excited to introduce Dr. Petunia Lee. She is the principal EQ coach at the Collaboration Corner. And how I got to know her, I was reading this book and I was so very impressed. I finished it in one day and I was like, oh my God, I need to get Dr. Pet to come and talk to us. And I'm so grateful that she has generously agreed to share her time and expertise with us. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Dr. Petunia Lee. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Pet. Yeah, Dr. Pet, would you like to tell us a little bit about maybe yourself, Collaboration Corner, or how you came about doing what you're doing?
At the Collaboration Corner, we teach EQ in simulated real world work groups. So we have behavioral psychologists who will make the observations, and then we will problem solve, troubleshoot. Often we welcome children that pose many problems at home, in school, uncontrollable children, children who don't want to study. We also have children who have nothing wrong with them, but they want to lead. They want to learn to lead. So we welcome these children in our center. We work with them. We work with their parents too to deliver results.
Oh, wonderful. And your book is I know you have sold like 4,000 copies of this book, right? And Lisu also commented. Lisu is one of the leading educators, and she also commented in the comments that she has read your book. So I think a lot of parents and educators have, all read your book before. Can you tell us a little bit about this book? And also, what is the common problems that parents encounter when motivating their children?
The book brings together a set of strategies that I have pulled together under the name internal drive theory. I used to be a management consultant and I researched in motivation. Actually, a lot of motivation research is done in organizations. In the field of educational psychology, there's not as much focus, not as much money goes to motivation as well in 10, 15 years ago as in organizations. So I started out as an organizational psychologist. But then, my kids weren't doing well that time. So I left the workforce and then I started to help my kids. And then parents would approach me on how to motivate their children. So I potted over a lot of what I already knew from organizations to children. And then I was helping so many parents and was repeating myself so much that I thought, okay, this is getting tiring. I shall write a book.
And I'm so glad you did.
So I put together all these things that I kept repeating to parents and kept repeating to parents, and I put it in a book. And happily enough, I think it was quite well received. My daughter did the drawings. My son read it, and they gave me good feedback. And so the book was actually it's a family activity. It was
so meaningful.
Yeah, a family journey.
Wow.
And then my kids would say, "Oh, you mean you do that to us?"
So unknowingly, they were
going but
through
it doesn't matter because these are all positive strategies.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Even if they know, it still works,
And then that sets the tone for them for the future too. When they're parenting, they know that they've gone through this positively, and they can inspire the next generation and your grandchildren.
As to the most common problem parents encounter when motivating their children, at the Collaboration Corner, we do quite a fair bit of parent coaching. So I have a lot of visibility into family dynamics and what parents do, what children are like, why isn't it working? And across the board, I find that one of the issues parents manage poorly is actually the emotional environment at home. If you manage the emotional environment, you can motivate. Let me maybe share something. In essence, you know, emotions power effort. So if you annoy your child, you deplete his motivation, he necessarily will hate study. But if you give him joy, tops up motivation, he will love study. Yes. So this, then I know a lot of parents are thinking, yeah, okay lah, but how, you know, it's like, is it even doable? You know,
how to make it
there,
fun.
you're saying these things, you know, and it's all theoretical, you know, anybody can say that, you know, does it work? So I can actually share stories with you. We recently, last year, my September 2019 class welcomed 15 kids. One of the girls, I found out later, the mother had to bribe her with a book every week to attend my class. And the other one, a boy, he attended 2 lessons. And at that time, the lessons were still in my home. Then he went home and he said, Mommy, have you seen how big her house is? You're paying her too much. You're just, you know, funding her house. We shouldn't pay this kind of money. And he wanted to withdraw. So we started a class of 15. 2 of these children flat out didn't want to come. So I managed the emotional environment. When they came, in our classes, children work in groups. As a matter of process and protocol, my facilitators and I, we go around dispensing joy. Today, both their children, okay, not both these children, the girl, mother said, you know, if you don't like Dr. Pet anymore, you can leave. And she said no. The boy, I told him, look, you know, if you're not going to put in effort, you're going to give me sloppy work. I don't want to teach you anymore. And he put in a lot of effort after that because he didn't want to leave. You see, it's not just theoretical. If you use joy, you really can motivate to put in extra effort. Okay? So the thing about families is this. Families always exist in groups, right? You can't have a family of one. So a family necessarily is a group. So family members actually affect each other's motivation. So let me bring it back to the classroom. Our children work in groups of 3. When 2 people are in conflict, the whole group cannot work. No one feels motivated. So in the beginning, I started off teaching English, and English was what I wanted to teach. But in order to teach English properly, I needed the children to get along. So I found myself using what I knew in motivation to manage the emotional environment. And slowly we developed what today we call the EQ Generative Protocol. To teach low EQ children how to not affect the emotional environment for other children. Because, you know, years ago, I had children come to class, they discussed, they can't get their views heard, and this one turned around and punched his friend in the belly. So it was a big hoo-ha. Once that happens, nobody can work. The other 2 children are scared to death. Nobody is motivated in that kind of circumstance. So we had to develop a set of processes and protocols to ensure that the emotional environment in the class was robust. But then after a while, we found that the EQ Generative Protocol became a very desirable part of the classes. Parents came and said, look, you know, I don't want your English class. Can I just come and learn EQ? And our students started to become student leaders in secondary school. The one who punched his friend in the belly, who had anger issues, later on he led, the last I heard, he was vying for leadership in his school's journalism CCA. And he was leading his little work group at a Straits Times competition of some sort. And then I have another child, low EQ too. This one kicked his school principal, amongst other things. Because other things he was also doing was he once pushed his friend up against the wall by the throat. He also kicked his friend at the throat. Parents were being called in like every 2 weeks because of an incident. So this one, he invented a game. This is an interesting game, requires 6 players. The game master will facilitate the game. Everybody gets 1 turn a day. So the game master can facilitate about 6 to 7 groups. So that's about 36 children. And they all want to play. So, he's now a leader. Effectively, he is game master. He facilitates 36 children in 6 groups playing his game, the one that he invented.
Wow.
And he used to be a pariah, nobody wanted to play with him because he was so touchy, so easily, so explosive. But now, he's very calm. He started to play softball, where previously he just couldn't stay in any team sport because he would always be fighting with people. So these are actually low EQ children. They start from a very low base. So from there, they became leaders. So it's really amazing what you can do if you manage the emotional environment in the home and
Yes.
in the class.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Very, very inspiring. So, with all the strategies you have shared, I think there were 10 or 11 of them in your book. What would be one of or some of your favorite ones that you can share with us today?
When people read my book, they always come to me and say, "Oh, Dr. Pat, your book is so wonderful, and I really love structured choices." And then I will scratch my head and I say, structured choices. Yeah, it's a very basic strategy. My favorite is self-concept redesign. So what is self-concept? Self-concept is your definition of whom you are. If I ask you to define yourself, you might say, I'm a woman, I'm Chinese, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I run Hearty Moms. So this is how you describe yourself. And then if I ask you further, to describe you with maybe 3 adjectives, you might say, I'm kind, I am considerate, I have a heart for children and mothers. So that's your definition of who you are. Now, the research in psychology is very robust in the following. People always behave very much in accordance, very consistently with their self-concept. Okay, so let me give you an example. My daughter, she's now a big girl now, but when she was 15, Nanyang girls put her in the humanities program. So 25 girls were picked to go to what they call the HP class. At the end of year 3, collectively, this HP class scored at the bottom of the cohort in math. So the teachers were all befuddled. They went into the room and said, how can you all score so badly? So the girls were like this, but we are all humanities people. We're not supposed to be good in math. We are good in geography, history, literature, not good in math. And the teacher was like, huh. So he went back and he got the exam data from the previous year. He came home, he did a bit of charting and graphing, and then he came back and he showed the girls. But for you to even be picked to go into the humanities class, you have to be in the top of your cohort in math. So we don't understand how you're all dropped from the top 10% in math to bottom 10% in math. And then the girls were like, So you can see now how powerful labeling is.
Yes.
Labeling has immense consequences. Because they were labeled the humanities girls, they all decided that they were no good in math, and they were no good in math. So self-concept design really is my favorite. I do it without even thinking. because I do it so often, and I do it to my children still. I don't have to anymore, but I still do it. How do I do it? Let me give you an example. Okay. When I took my son over from my mother-in-law in end of primary 3, because he did so badly in school. He was like near the bottom of the class. My mother-in-law, said to me, he's playful. He can't focus. He doesn't like studying. He does things very slowly. And it was true. I looked at my poor son, he's so small, so skinny, and he really was all those things. But I used self-concept redesign on him. Next year, he's going to Cambridge. Nobody who knows him today will say that he's playful, unfocused, does things slowly, and doesn't like to study. You don't get into Cambridge with that kind of attitude. Yeah. Self-concept design requires us to pick evidence from the child's natural behaviors. There must be evidence. And then to use this evidence to accuse the child. And I use the word accuse. I know it's a very, very strong word, but essentially parents do this all the time, but negatively. You didn't finish your homework, you're lazy. Your handwriting is poor, you're not diligent. You do self-concept design all the time, but do you do it deliberately, or do you do it accidentally? And you sculpt your child's self-concept design to be lazy, not diligent, not focused, afraid of failure. Okay, then at this point, when I coach parents, they always kind of tell me this. They say, but Dr. Pat, he doesn't give me any behaviors. There's no evidence, And then I'm like, no, you have to plant evidence.
Oh, I like this. Plant evidence.
Yes.
Okay.
If there's no evidence, you plant evidence. So remember, my son is not focused, right? Okay. So I worked with him for 2 hours. Along the way, I gave him a lot of joy that kept him focused. At the end of 2 hours, because with my help, right? I mean, if I ask him, sit down there for 2 hours, don't move, what happened now? Yeah, but I sat with him or was there, and I deliberately managed the emotional environment to give him joy, pops of joy, right through the 2 hours. And he did his work. At the end of the 2 hours, I had planted evidence already. I said, wow, you worked for 2 hours. You must like studying very much. And then the first time I said it, my son looked at me, she must be crazy. But then I did it again and again. And I still remember when he was in P3, he failed math. So he was like, I'm not good at math. He came and patted my knee and said, Mommy, I'm not one of the smart ones, Mommy. I'm not like Dad. I'm not smart. So in his self-concept is, I'm not smart and I failed math. So I again planted evidence. I went to find things, math worksheets, and then I would do the problem sum and he would do the problem sum, and I would do it wrongly. And then he would do it correctly. Of course, I'm smart enough to pick something he can do. Yeah, then both of us do together, and then I do it wrongly, and then he will show me his working, and I say, no, son, you are wrong. Mommy is right. And then he looks at me, and then he said, no, Mommy. And then he explained. I said, no, I'm right. He rolled his eyes. Okay, it's a good problem. Yeah, it's a good problem. He's a bit rude. I give you that. Yes, but it's a good problem. Better he roll his eyes because he's explaining to his stupid mother than I roll my eyes because I'm explaining to my stupid son. So this is a happy problem. So he rolled his eyes, and then he said, no, he tried to explain again. So we argue back, argue forth. And then I said, okay, why don't we wait for Daddy to come home? Daddy is the genius in math. We ask Daddy to decide which one of us is correct. Daddy comes home, and of course, Daddy ruled in his favor because actually he's right. Yeah. And then my son looked at me and gloated. But that again is still a good problem. Better that he look at me than I look at that I go, oh, you're so stupid. It's a good problem. Children are going to give you problems anyway. So try and get them to give you good problems. Yeah. So I worked on his self-concept diligently. Every day I can probably do evidence positive accusation upwards of maybe 60 to 70 times.
Wow. Okay. Is that
Yeah.
your recommended number for parents trying this concept?
If you can make it a habit, the way I do it, I do it almost without thinking. One of my favorite analogies is that children are like jadeite. Jadeite is a gemstone. It's one of the toughest stones available. And it is very, very hard to carve. So you have to carve jadeite one nick at a time, one nick at a time, one nick at a time. Children are even harder than jadeite because it takes years to carve, and you can't be too harsh because then you break the child. Just like, when you are carving jadeite, you have to put, as you carve, you need to place the jadeite under a constant stream of water. Otherwise, the stone, the heat generator will crack the stone, will damage the stone. So it's the same, gently, one stroke at a time, you sculpt the cell concept. I took him over in P3. I was able to get him really done and properly done by the time he reached P6. So when he reached P6, he was everything not that his grandma had said. So I remember the 1 month before his PSLE, someone invited me to Israel. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to get another chance like this. But his PSLE is coming. Yeah, but I will never get another invitation like this. So I said, okay, I don't care. I'm going to go, And I went. When I came home, it was a 3-week trip. And when I came home, there were 15 top school papers on my table. And not just that, there was a sheet of paper with a table with 5 columns. Column number 1, the name of the top school paper. Column number 2, the marks he got after marking. Column number 3, the marks he lost to carelessness. Column number 4, the marks he lost to really don't know. And column number 5, action plan.
Wow, lovely.
It was there, all tabulated.
From a 12-year-old.
Not just that, he also had 15 English compose for me to mark. And I was very angry because I thought I told him to do Chinese compose. So I wasn't very pleased about having to mark 15 at a go. And I also am particular about giving feedback. I don't like children to do more work without the feedback in between. Because you do 15 compose with no feedback, you're going to make 15 times the same mistake. So since I wasn't around, I wanted him to do Chinese compose so that his grandma could mark after every one. Yes. But I think he might have heard wrongly, or he might have decided, Chinese, English is easier to do, so I do English. He might have, So yeah. So 3 years for P4, P5. By end of P6, he had a completely different view of himself. He saw himself as hardworking. He saw himself as good at math. He saw himself as diligent, honest, not afraid of failure. And that was the result of 50, 60 times a day. A stroke here, a nick there, stroke here, a nick there. Very effective. You basically, if you master self-concept redesign or design, right, you can look forward to the day when you can turn your back on the child, and your child will do what he's supposed to do without you running after him. So this one is my favorite strategy. Yeah. If I was given the choice to forget, all strategies but one, I'll keep this one.
Wow. And it's definitely very, very powerful. And, as a mind wellness practitioner myself, I have to agree with you that the mind is a very powerful thing. And if you can, grasp your mind, you can manage it. A lot of wonderful things can be done, and you can really bring out the potential in a person. Because when you're a person that is negative and living in that sort of negative thinking, like I can't, like you said, the humanities kids are like, oh, we can't do math. If you're sitting in that kind of thought, then yeah, certainly your mind will say, yeah, I can't. So they shut everything out. And it's wonderful what you're saying. I like what you said, plant the evidence.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
That's
yeah.
really
Exactly, exactly. So all these words are it's like accusation. Do it positive accusation. Then we
Mm,
talk about entrapment. Entrap them into showing the desired behaviors. No evidence, plant the evidence so you can accuse them of these positive things. And then they will start to believe that they are all these things.
yes.
So one of the favorite things I like to tell parents, treat your child like the man or the woman today that you want him or her to become.
Yes.
Don't wait until that day, because you see Picasso, when he first started drawing, if his parents waited until he became Picasso to praise him, he would never have become Picasso. I mean, surely when he, at 3 years old, when he held a pen and made his first doodles, which looked like nothing at all, his parents or someone must have said, wow, good job, you did well, you must be very gifted in drawing. It starts somewhere.
Yes, you have to start somewhere. Oh, and I love that you're emphasizing this. Treat your child the way you want them to be like. That's really, really important. Yeah, because you can't wait until that time. You have to start treating them right now,
Yes,
right?
exactly. So if your son is irresponsible, you have to treat him as if he is responsible. If your son doesn't deserve respect, all the more you have to respect him today. I always tell mummies, treat your son the way you treat his father. I mean, provided that it's a happy marriage.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough. But it's a great reminder, yeah, of how to treat your son. And then it goes both ways as well, because when you're treating your child with respect, that comes back that same way very naturally without having to be forced or using authority or anything. So
That's true.
definitely. Wow. Yeah, so we're really having very nice audiences with us live. So I thank all of you who are really watching us. And if you haven't read this book, I really want to highly recommend you to pick up a copy. We're going to put the link for you. Um, what we just shared today is only just one of them. Okay, there's like 10, 11 awesome strategies in there that you can also apply. So we'll put the link in, and you can order a book there through that link, or get connected with Dr. Pat to find out more about what she does. Certainly, she has a fantastic blog there as well that you can read more about her and what she does. Okay, well, I've got a bonus question for Dr. Pat before we finish off. So, Dr. Pat, our group is about Hearty moms. And Hearty moms to me are, moms who really take time to care for themselves, and they're therefore feeling nurtured and fulfilled so that they can in turn nurture happy, thriving kids as well. So, what's one thing that you like to do daily to make your day and to make yourself happy?
Actually, I like my work. I mean, I mean, if you're talking about things like hobbies, all I do embroidery, I do knitting. These are activities that help to resource me so that I can feel joy at work. I mean, basically, I am retired. I don't really need to work. So the work is what makes me happy. I like seeing children change before my eyes. In July, we had one child. He was aggressive. He was a bully. He was convinced he had ADHD, and he went around the room flapping his hands. He talked very loudly. He was rude. And his mother said, Dr. Pat, you are my last resort. if you expel him, there's no hope for my son. So we did what we had to do, including pray over him. And today, he comes to class, he's humble, he's kind, he's helpful. Uh, he will helpfully remind. The other day, I think my facilitator made a mistake in something, and he was very gentle when he told her. Previously he would have done it in a very contemptuous, disrespectful way, but he said it very gently, and we were very appreciative, and we thanked him for his gentleness. And I tell you, his mother is such a fan now, because it was like,
I'm sure you have lots of
to my
fans.
son. Yeah. I mean, that gives me really a lot of joy. To see that little boy who punched someone in the belly, change into a leader. To see that a child who used to have anger issues to the extent that he kicked the school principal, today game master, popular, leading a group of 36 boys at least. That's happy. I mean,
Yes.
that is like not just happy, that is like, yeah, kind of happy.
Very fulfilling as well, and so meaningful.
It is.
Yes.
And there are days when I cry. It's true. When the first two classes are very, very tiring, because we get all the problem children. After all, I mean, EQ, right? Motivation, right? That is what I sell myself on, right? So of course we get all the problem children. So there are days, when after the class I go home and I hug my pillow and I cry and I tell my husband, I cannot take it. I'm gonna stop. Close shop already. I don't want to continue anymore. But then the next morning comes and I have to do what I have to do. And God is always there, and God gives me strength. And I think God makes miracles happen too. It's not just.
Oh, so wonderful to hear what you're saying. Very inspiring, and definitely, making a difference in somebody's life is always very fulfilling. And it's wonderful you're doing such meaningful work. So, yeah, if you're listening in and you'd like to check out more, also click on the link later on. We're going to post it up so you can connect with Dr. Pat. Okay, so any last words for us?
And I think the impact is great. I like, I'm in my 50s, right? So let's say I die in, like, by the time I'm 70s, 80s. So my children, I mean my students, when they are in their 30s and 40s, that's when, you kind of reach the pinnacle of your career. Sometimes I like to just look at them and say, imagine what they would become. The Chinese have this saying, where you hope your son would become a dragon. Yeah. I hope my little dragonlings will become dragons.
Wonderful, I'm sure. And he's going off to Cambridge, right? Your child.
No, not my dragonling.
Oh,
my students, my
your
other
student.
people's children. That they will be, they will come and they are only worms that nobody likes. And then we change them to dragonlings. And in future, 30 years from now, I might already be dead. They will be dragons.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and they'll be the ones that will, taking care of the next generation and taking care of the world. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for your sharing, Dr. Pat. Wonderful to have you. Learn so much from you. Wow, I'm excited to start planting evidence for my own child.
Yes, and make positive accusations.
Yes, positive accusations. Love that. Absolutely. I love that term as well. Awesome. So yeah, so we've come to the end of our Hearty chats. And thank you for those of you who've stayed with us, and those who will be watching the replay. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and Dr. Pat will be most happy to answer them later on. So thank you for joining us, and we wish you a good day, and join us in the next Hearty Chat video again. All right. Bye for now.